Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Subnet Show. I am your host, Gabriel Cardona, and I am joined tonight, as always, by my co host, the man with the most cats in crypto. And I feel like somebody's going to call you on that soon, Connor. Connor Daly. What is up, Connor?
Well, we might be in luck today. I threw my podcast setup together quite quickly today, so I didn't actually position my cats like I like them. So there's actually one in the room with me right now. He's sleeping, but you never know when he will awaken. So who knows? There might be an extra guest appearance today.
Nice. Well, thanks for joining us. I know you've been crunching. Everybody's been super, super busy right now. So I appreciate you taking the time to join us. As always, we're super grateful for your insights and your presence. And so, one of the amazing things about my job, I have such a incredibly cool job, is that I travel around and I get to meet people who are having an impact in the world with blockchain technology. And I'm sure anybody who's ever heard me talk before knows how I feel about this. I feel that the blockchain has the potential to be as meaningful as the web and have an impact like the web. And I say that all the time, and I work as hard as that. I believe that that's a possibility. And I do, in fact, believe that we're building the internet of finance, and it's going to do the same thing for finance as the web did for information. And that's basically democratize it and make it ubiquitous and that kind of thing. And so, most of the time I interface with engineers because I'm an engineer and I'm a developer evangelist, but there are people who are having an impact with the blockchain on so many different levels. And I think when you zoom out in the story of the blockchain being as meaningful as the web, a big part of that story is ultimately going to be basically regulation. Because when you're dealing with a system that ends up having that kind of impact, obviously it's going to have regulation all around the world and at the micro and the macro level. So a few years ago, it came onto my radar that there was like a blockchain renaissance happening in Wyoming. And I went to the very first hackathon at the University of Wyoming in 2018. I went back in 19. I went back again this year. And one of the characters who I saw there who was just making huge moves is our guest today. So I want to welcome to the Subnet show Tyler Lindholm. Tyler is the state policy director for Senator Lummis. And I believe Tyler corrected me when I was in Wyoming that there have been 24 laws passed in Wyoming, and I know he has been, working closely with the teams doing all of that. So I just want to welcome you, Tyler. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. And anytime Gabriel says I need you to jump and do something, Tyler, he's one of the OGs of the Wyoming Hackathon, as he knows. I mean, we started on a shoestring and kind of a prayer, and this year we put together over 500 grand. A lot of that was in the prize money. On top of that, another one of the layer ones was doing their conference right next door. So all of a sudden, Wyoming's really, we're kind of busting onto the scene and we're doing some cool things. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. If you're in the United States right now and you're doing a crypto friendly company or startup, there's really only one place to incorporate, and that is in Wyoming. And so again, I've really come up to speed on things. And as I understand it, you can school me here, I'm sure, but Wyoming was the place that created the LLC. And now 65% of the LLCs that are created in the United States are created in Delaware for whatever reasons, I don't know. And now you can actually, as of July this year, you can create a DAO as an LLC in Wyoming. And so a big part of my job is that I project into the future, right? I'm building technology that's going to have an impact in 50 years. And so I said before we started recording, I'm a total Tyler and Kaylin fanboy. I see the work that you're doing and the impact that it's going to have in 2 or 3 or 4 generations down the line. There's already been big companies that have relocated. IOHK moved from Hong Kong. I can't remember the name of the team, but it was one of the teams that was there this year. It was a gaming startup. They relocated from NYC to Cheyenne. And, these are people planting seeds that are going to grow roots, that are going to grow into the future. And so the work you guys are doing is absolutely amazing. But as I mentioned, we often interface with engineers. So the story of what is your crypto journey, the crypto vision is kind of the same for all those people. But I think it'd be cool to get the story of your crypto journey. So as I mentioned, I had heard that a big catalyst for the whole Wyoming movement was Kaylin attempting to give a donation of Bitcoin, which was unable to be accepted by the college due to a gray area of taxes or something. And they connected you with her, and that was like the beginning. So can you kind of give us a sense of your crypto journey? How did you stumble into Bitcoin and crypto?
Sure. Yeah. No, and you got it mostly right. Caitlin's alma mater was the University of Wyoming. She grew up. She was a Laramie girl, Laramie, Wyoming, and graduated from UW and went off and conquered Wall Street after she went to Harvard and got her
Amazing.
JD there. I mean, the gal's. I mean, she's brilliant. She's a super
block
smart
star.
chick.
Yeah.
So I got into crypto back in I first learned about crypto, I should say, and started studying it back in 2012. It was on the Ron Paul forums. I'm political by nature, and I was political back then, all the way back to 2008 when Ron Paul made his first run. And kind of one of the fun things, this is a new challenge for you guys. I mean, you guys are around developers and whatnot, and those stories might be a little bit different. But there's a huge amount of people in the crypto space that are from the Ron Paul camp, and it comes from that monetary policy of decoupling from the state, decoupling from a centralized currency, and what that can mean to a free society. And so that's why I first learned about it. And of course, as is the case with most, big L or little L libertarians. Approach with caution on some of these new things. And so as I was reading up on it and studying it, I got a little bit more involved in 2013. And as the years went on, I was first elected into the Wyoming State House of Representatives in 2014. And my first session was 2015. And at that time period, what was law in the state of Wyoming was it was a mandate that came out from the Division of Banking saying that all crypto exchanges had to have a money transmitter's license that not only reflected a one-to-one basis, basically you've got to be 100% reserve, but you have to be one-to-one in crypto plus one-to-one in fiat.
Wow.
So they were making crypto exchanges double down. Wyoming, one of the unknown stories is Wyoming was one of the worst states in the nation. And so I found out about that in 2015, and I ran a bill in 2016 to fix it and got absolutely slaughtered. I mean, I got smoked, man. I was a ranked freshman. It was my first term, and I remember walking into this committee, as legislatures and politicians will be, for the most part, it's old white men. And so I'm not a young white man anymore. So at the time I was a little younger. So I guess I'm one of them now, but I ended up walking in the room and presenting this bill, and everybody looking at me like this new legislator from Northeast Wyoming, from a town of 1,000 people, is talking about Bitcoin and how we should allow people to invest their money freely without any, government oversight. And
right.
I mean, I went off the rainbow with these cats. I talked about banking and its history of discrimination. And so, anyways, I killed my own bill, and during it failed. And that next summer, a mutual friend of Caitlin and ours introduced us to each other, because at that time Caitlin was working for a blockchain company and had run into this issue with donating money. Some unrealized Bitcoin to the University of Wyoming. They couldn't accept it because of this situation with money transmitters licenses. So we kind of ganged up and we wrote a bill, changed the bill that I originally had, and worked with some attorneys on some better language. Nice. And then we decided that it was like October by the time we had that done. And so we had like 3 or 4 months before we were heading back into session, and I was feeling froggy, and I was like, why don't we do something wild? I mean, Wyoming's hungry. We got to do something, we got to do something to attract businesses here. Let's do something wild. Anybody know anything wild? And I think it was Caitlin, because it was like Caitlin Long, Lewis Cohen, and a couple other cats from New York. These, bigger guys than me were on the phone, and
not taller.
Yeah, not taller.
Okay.
Caitlin mentioned, well, we could always tackle the ICO thing. And I think it was her. I think it was her that said that. Either that or she replied, "That's crazy. We'll never get that passed." And so that triggered the hell out of me because I like a little bit of crazy stuff. And we started digging into it as far as what it would look like. And we were able to sell that bill that year amongst some others. And then it really just spooled from there. And it's actually 26 bills the Wyoming legislature has passed in this space. Yeah. So and there's a lot of people that are like 26. Well, how could it be, so many? Well, there wasn't really a pattern to follow, right? So the state of Wyoming was essentially building the mold as far as what this looks like. And we had to do it in a manner that was attractive to industry, but also at the same time protected consumers, provided that regulatory, nobody really likes regulations, but something that you could sell to the masses and sell to the larger legislature as a whole. Without coming off sounding crazy, which is tough for me as somebody that comes from the Ron Paul camp of the world. I recognize it. My own thoughts, I don't think sound that crazy, but there's lots of people that think that Tyler's over the rainbow a little bit. But anyways, so a lot of success and a lot of people joined up. We've got a lot of rock stars still in the legislature. I no longer serve there, but we got a lot of rock stars that are still there, still pressing the case, like Representative Jared Olson, Representative Cyrus Western, Landon Brown, Shelley Duncan, Tara Nethercott, Senator Tara Nethercott, Chris Rothfuss, Ogden Driscoll. I mean, so there's a whole team.
Yeah, support those people. You guys hear those names, rewind the YouTube clip, go support those people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so we actually learned some lessons because of that. And I'm glad you brought that up, Gabriel, because we do absolutely need to pile behind the folks that are leading the charges on this. What a lot of folks don't know is I served for 6 years and I got out. I was done. It was not my choice to get out. I got my ass kicked. I lost an election because of it. Because, it wasn't for lack of money or anything like that. It was, lack of being able to talk to folks back home about, why things like this matter. And so being able to explain it back home was to my detriment. And so that's the area that they're going to need some help. They don't need advice on how to do it. They need folks on the ground that are willing to go door to door or start your business here, or even just domicile it here where you're not even here, but you're just domiciling your business here. That's something that those guys can point to and say, that's what I did. And it didn't cost the state anything. And I think that helps quite a bit. I really, really do. So to kind of close out the whole political crypto story, it's Senator Cynthia Lummis. She had just won a 9-way open primary for the US Senate in the state of Wyoming. She won it with 63 or 64% of the vote, just absolutely slaughtered the field. I mean, just demolished everybody. But this gal's a legend in Wyoming. I mean, she's been in Wyoming politics for a while now and has served in multiple different capacities. Just an absolute legend. And
how long has she been senator?
So just since January.
Oh, it's since January. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so she had served in the U.S. House. She'd done the state treasurer gig. She had served in the state legislature. She had done all the things. Wow. And so when she ran for U.S. Senate, I mean, there was a lot of people that thought they could try to take her down. And boy, they were wrong. Yeah. And so she headhunted me and she said, "Hey, Tyler, let's go to Washington and do the same thing that you did here in Wyoming."
That's great, man.
And so I was like, all right, yeah, let's ride, lady. And she's, in fact, I'll give you guys a piece of candy if you want. I don't know if you guys had seen. I don't know if did you guys see on Twitter where the senator posted a picture of the first or a couple pages of a bill that she's about to release?
I did not see it.
No.
So you're gonna have to go check it out. The bill is massive. Boys, it's 150 pages.
Wow.
150 page bill that touches on securities, commodities, taxation of digital assets, on down the line. Wow. Except she's a U.S. Senator from Wyoming. So when I say that it touches all these things, I want everybody to understand that it's obviously done in a friendly manner. And it's obviously done in a manner that supports innovation and props up innovation. So one of the issues, Gabriel, you talked about LLCs in the state of Wyoming and that kind of whole deal that shook out there. You're absolutely right. Wyoming invented LLCs in 1977, but they were not recognized by the IRS as a legal business entity for the purposes of the IRS until 1984. And so by that time, we had lost our lead. Nobody was really doing it. And all of a sudden, Delaware swooped in. They're the guys that invented the C Corp. They swooped in and they were able to do a lot of regulatory capture in that space.
Okay.
By the way, if any of the folks that are listening, if your attorney tells you you got to register in Delaware, change attorneys. They're doing a shitty job. If you're working in the digital asset space, if you're working in the blockchain space, and your attorney says to register in Delaware, they have not done their research. They're not giving you good advice. They're giving you outdated advice. They really are.
Right.
There's no digital asset protection in Delaware, and it's nothing against Delaware, but yeah, fuck Delaware.
Okay, I want to jump in here.
Jump, let's go.
So I am but a humble builder. I am not a lawyer. I am not a politician. And I want to speak to this audience for people. I'm not a businessman either. So I want to kind of really get down to the basics and talk about, what have you actually accomplished? I think a lot of people, they think of building a DAO. They think of, participating in Web3 or in crypto as coding. And even if you get people together, you have your token launch. But I think what people quickly come to realize once you go down that path is, okay, so now I just created a bunch of money out of nothing. Now I have like a treasury I have to manage. So I have to how do I think about like my taxable gains here? Like what jurisdictions if this token is available in like all over the world, do I have to pay taxes in every country or like my country? And so now you have to start thinking about, do I need a physical company to incorporate with this? So can you like walk us through some of the basics of what Wyoming offers and like some of the steps that founders should be thinking about if they are more like builder or Web3 native, and what considerations you would tell people who are kind of just getting started in this space? Right.
No, it's super good question, Connor. It really is. And so I'll give you the same thing that I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of my friends about. The reality of business is it's brutal, and it only gets worse when you're successful. As in, you're going to get sued. It's going to happen at some point, somehow. Somebody's going to stick up their ugly head. If I can give anybody any advice, I'd tell them, don't get a partner. Or don't get partners. No, that's not true. I've got some great partners.
All right. Sorry, Gabriel. I think this Subnet show might be going solo after this.
Well, if the Subnet show releases its own token, then you can figure out how you're going to. No, the reality is you need legal protection, which means you need legal precedence, right? The easiest legal protection that you can afford right now is not an attorney. It is legal precedence, which means there's a legislative body out there, whether that's US or state or wherever your jurisdiction might be, has done their homework, has put in the hard work, and has passed laws that protects your rights as an individual and as a corporation. So because we're in the digital asset space, that really narrows down that field quite a bit. Now you've got to look at the several states that have passed laws that do protect your rights to your digital assets. And that's a narrow scope. So I would.
What is that playing field? What does the lay of the land look like there?
Yeah, the big playing field. I mean, obviously, and I'm not being biased in that. In this, you can go and look and verify. I ask that you do. Wyoming is light years ahead of everybody else. I would say that probably in second place would be close between Texas or Colorado. Colorado doesn't get much air on this, but they should, because Colorado has actually passed more of Wyoming's laws than Texas has. And when I say passed Wyoming's laws, even last year's law that Texas got a lot of airtime for, where Governor Abbott was talking about Texas being the blockchain state and all that. He just passed one of Wyoming's laws, and good on him, because he does a better job at his media than we do. But that bill was 2 years, and that was a good bill, right? So that was basically amending the Uniform Commercial Code to take into consideration digital assets. So it takes into consideration a bailment, rehypothecation. It takes into consideration lien cleansing. Actually, you know what? The Texas model, they left lien cleansing out, which in my opinion, to their detriment. I don't think that's a smart play. Wyoming's takes into consideration lien cleansing. But The UCC is just part of it, just one small part about it. What about the uniform security law that all 50 states have adopted? What about that? Colorado's adopted Wyoming's version of that. So is Montana, and several other jurisdictions. I think Utah might have also. But you have to take those into consideration, right? If you're doing an ICO, or you're just doing a regular token, or you're doing a security token, whatever it is, legal precedence matters, and it's the cheapest form of legal protection that you can have for your business and for your own assets. But by God, form a corporation or an LLC. Always do that. Separate that liability from yourself and your business entity. Make sure that that's done. We've also created the first government recognized DAO in the nation. There's a lot of folks that are going to flinch at that a little bit, and I understand why. I get it. But also, just because we don't want government involved in digital assets doesn't mean the government's not going to force their way in. So the state of Wyoming figured we might as well preempt a little bit and put in laws that are actually friendly to the industry. In fact, that's going to be one of the little cookies I'm going to give you guys that nobody really knows about. But that's a part of Senator Lummis's bill that's going to be coming out in the following weeks, is forcing the IRS to recognize DAOs for states that have passed that law. So for those of you that are listening that know a state rep or state senator, tell them to go pass the DAO bill this next session, because it might be pretty handy if Congress moves on that and forces the IRS's hand.
I got to give you a little tip though, Tyler. So
Hit me.
if you're going to be in crypto, you can't give us cookies. You got to give us alpha leaks. That is the term.
That's it. This is an alpha leak. There's a lot of really good stuff in the bill, and I think you guys are gonna. I think the crypto industry is really, as a whole, is really going to appreciate the legislation. I mean, there's always going to be people that say things like Bitcoin doesn't need law and whatnot. And yeah, I agree. I agree. In a perfect world, it wouldn't. Unfortunately, we live in this world where politicians like to write laws. And so if we're going to be successful and long-term in this space, we've got to have a good offense. We do. So we've got to pass some good laws that protect us as individuals and companies.
So what now you bring up Bitcoin. I'm curious how you view the different challenges from, what's the difference between regulating Bitcoin and regulating DAOs and kind of like the more Web3 side versus the crypto as currency side of the industry?
Right. Well, obviously not everything fits into an existing infrastructure or box, right? But there is a lot of similarities that we see with these types of assets or these types of business formations, right? DAOs are business formations that may have native assets or native tokens that some might be securities and some are clearly not securities and can be considered a commodity, i.e. property, depending how the setup is handled. So a firm understanding of commodity law and securities law is a pretty good guide in that space. And for instance, with Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that, that is sufficiently decentralized. I'm using the SEC's words now. At that point, that's the easiest route to ensure that you are considered a commodity. And I'm not saying that dealing with the SEC is a bad thing, but if I had to pick, I don't think I'd want to be a security. There's a lot of regulations there, a lot of red tape.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I think actually there's a lot of utility in being a security as far as like kind of the functionality you can offer your users of it's nice to have stocks that like pay you back, dividends or whatever. And I think a lot of people would like that from their token protocols, but there just isn't. And it's, I don't think it's a lack of desire from people of wanting to be compliant. I think everybody wants to be compliant. It's just so hard. And there's just not enough precedent, like you're saying, to figure out what to do, because we like everybody says, we're early. We're the first people doing this. And so
that's right.
We don't have the benefit of decades of
that. Actually that builds into my sort of next sort of question, or what I want to touch on is, Tyler, do you get a sense of, again, myself sort of projecting into the future, do you get a sense of the impact that your work is having, and that you're setting precedents for other people perhaps down the line to refer to your work? Like, do you feel that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think we've seen over a baker's dozen amount of states that have either tried to copy or successfully passed some forms of our legislation. But the most important thing for me is, and the reason why I did this, wasn't to end the Federal Reserve. I know there's a lot of people that think that. I'm not going to say it wasn't my secondary goal, but my primary reason for going down this road and working so hard on this with so many other people, and why I'm so proud of Senator Lummis for taking that fight onto the US Senate. I mean, for Christ's sake, guys, she said, thank God for Bitcoin on the US Senate floor the other day. I mean, it's
historic. That's historic.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, that's historic.
Yeah, she's doing an awesome job, but it's always been and always will be about Wyoming for me. It's all about economic development. But I also come from a very different world than a lot of folks, right? So I live out on a cattle ranch, and I've got 4 kids, got a pile of kids, and my kids are raising cattle also and sheep, and they're doing all the things. But
that's awesome, man.
You know what I got to thinking about a couple of years, well, it was more than a couple of years, about 10 years ago. I got to thinking, like, what happens if one of my kids doesn't want to be a cowboy or a coal miner or something like that? Those are the jobs that are available in Wyoming. What happens if they don't? They're going to move the hell out of here. And I love Wyoming. I love my kids. And like a dream for me would be all my kids are close. Yeah. After they're out of the house and they're off doing great things. But why can't it be in Wyoming, right? So it's up to us to provide those opportunities. If we're going to build a legacy, and that's what crypto's about. Yeah. If we're going to build a legacy, we got to build, right? And that's what Connor and Gabriel, that's what you guys do. I mean, that's your whole business is building. And that's why I appreciate, folks like you, Gabriel, who's been, Thanks, just a staunch supporter of Wyoming from the get-go. I think you recognize that, right? It's all about legacy.
I'm buying. I'm saying this, but it's not. It hasn't. There's nothing formal in place yet. But my intention is to buy a place in Wyoming. I really, really see the vision, and it's a beautiful place anyway. I'm trying to look to buy a ranch somewhere, and so I'm considering myself also having roots in Wyoming. So I really do believe the work you guys are doing is genuinely going to have a impact in the future, because the network effect is drawing so many different players to plant their roots in Wyoming. And if you just play that out over some time, that ends up being pretty interesting.
Right. It can be. It can be. If we plan enough, get enough good folks here. And one of the cool parts about this whole space too is, with crypto folks, it's about, individual sovereignty. It's about being your own person and being left alone. You're just being allowed to, as long as you're not hurting someone else. It's that whole kind of, classically liberal side of politics, which is basically to me to leave everybody the hell alone. Sure. And so if that's the group of people that we're attracting to Wyoming, I'm here for it. That sounds great. That sounds awesome.
I wondered if you wanted to go back so there's been 26 laws. There's a couple different ways we can approach this. I wanted to see if you wanted to shout out any highlights of out of the 26, any of the laws that jump to your mind, out of the time that you've been doing this, any moments that jump to your mind, or out of all the people you've worked with, any people that jump to your mind. So I just wanted to kind of fish your brain for some amazing stuff, because I know you've really dealt with some serious historic players in this journey.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think as far as like iconic moments that have happened to me, I'll name like 2. One was getting the special purpose depository institution bill passed through the House. This is like a 70-page bill. I put everybody to sleep walking them through that bill. And so the Wyoming legislature is very different than a lot of other legislatures. We don't do our fights on the news or anything like that. We do it down on the floor. We get dirty. We're going to yell at each other. It's going to be ugly. There's a lot of people that see it that are like, it's like a brawl going on down there. And it's true. But by God, that's the way it ought to be. I think that's where our founders intended. So getting that passed and being able to, the bankers were not pleased with that bill and went against it pretty hard. And so to have them go against me on the floor and just absolutely trounce them is a special moment in my mind. Nice. I'd say another special moment for me would be it was just a couple months ago when Senator Lummis took to the Senate floor to announce the Financial Innovation Caucus, her formation of it with her co-chairman, Senator Kirsten Sinema. And while she stood up there talking about Bitcoin and all these different fundamental principles that need to be put in place at the federal level, that was a proud moment for me to be able to sit on the Senate floor and watch her deliver that.
Heck yeah.
It was pretty surreal to go from, this guy reading the Ron Paul forums at midnight in 2012 to sitting on the US Senate floor watching Senator Cynthia Lummis just absolutely, run the ball right up the ladder. And so it was pretty cool. And it kind of goes to show, I mean, there's a lot of people that say you got to have all sorts of money to do this and to get involved and whatnot. And that's complete bullshit. I wish I had all kinds of money. I just had a lot of try, and I lived in the right place.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to play devil's advocate a little bit here, and I know you've expressed that you're very much you want to try to keep for the most part keep kind of regulation out of crypto. If we do it smartly. So I'm kind of curious what does that look like? What are the things that you think that we do need to regulate that are maybe a little bit too open right now? I know a guy you probably know, Ryan Selkis, from Masari. He loves to tweet on Twitter, and he's had some pretty good ones recently about I'd like to thank the SEC from protecting me from all of these token sale gains. And I think for the most part, he's right. He listed a token list, I think, is a company that does token sales, and all but one of them have been like profitable. And so I think maybe access to token sales, that's been something that's hard for US citizens, is something that maybe isn't kind of the regulation we want to see or need to see. But I guess, like, what do you see as the things that consumers are being harmed by that would be important to implement?
Right. Well, and I think everybody sees a lot of these different tokens aren't even available in the United States, and if you do get into them, you're going to be trading via Tether, USDC, anyways. So it gets convoluted, and the main reason behind that is lack of definitions, lack of clarity around our existing laws. If they're going to be exempt, then exempt them. But it has to be in law. We cannot depend on regulatory agencies to take the mantle of. We live in a constitutional republic, to take the mantle of our legislature and to basically take away the voice of the people. And if your voice is not being heard by your elected voice, you know what to do. You've got to vote, whether it's voting with your feet or voting with your pen. You've got to vote. You've got to change the narrative. You have to change these people's mind. And we saw that with the infrastructure bill when that first shook out in the Senate. That whole fight. I mean, all of a sudden, every U.S. senators, the infrastructure bill was no longer about infrastructure. It was about these crypto kids that we really, really pissed off. And everybody was freaking out, except for our office, Senator Cynthia Lummis's office. we were the people with the amendment to fix it. So, I think the reality is there have been some tokens that have come out that are clearly being operated as a security in a manner where there's been some rug pulls. And so my opinion is that there is a place for some consumer protection in those places. And for the most part, outfits, I mean, if you look at Kraken Exchange, they've got a stellar history. It's shiny clean. I don't think anybody compares to them. And I will go ahead and announce my bias too. It's not
Jesse's been in Wyoming a couple times, hasn't he?
Kraken is a speedy charter.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So they've gone through the special purpose depository chartering in the state of Wyoming to be 100% reserve bank.
Amazing.
So they've got this great tracker. That's my bias. I don't own any of Kraken or anything like that. My bias is they're a Wyoming company. So if you guys want a state policy director for U.S. senator that talks about your company and will help you succeed and can get you access to that senator, move your company to Wyoming. I'm not playing. My boss has told me to run the ball on this. So here we go. If you wanna have that safe place in the United States where you know your assets are protected under existing law that's put into law, and not just into regulations, then the choice is simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's. Yeah, I was gonna say.
That would be my answer in that space on the certain things that need to be looked at, is we have to define things. Otherwise, we leave it up to agency.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think there's like a few things that are like really harmful to users right now. I think one is poor interfaces and poor just kind of understanding of the technology. I have so many users who, I message me every day saying that they accidentally, sent some crypto to the wrong address or something like that. Yeah. And then, there's so many like rug pulls, or also just kind of the definition of what counts as theft in this space. The whole, is code law or is law, or what does it mean? If was this purpose the intended behavior of the code, or did this person use it maliciously? And that's really hard to clarify.
Before I forget this, Connor, because you guys do have a large group of developers that do listen to your podcast, I do want to mention this. There's one state in the nation that has specifically cited code as speech and protected it as a First Amendment right, and that's the state of Wyoming. That was one of our last laws that we passed. And the reason why we did that is because of the people like Satoshi Nakamoto that chose to take on a pseudonym because they're afraid of their government and how their government's going to react. And Cody Wilson, who released CAD files for a 3D printed gun. He didn't print the gun. He just released the CAD file, and the federal government went after him. So in the state of Wyoming, we decided to protect those that code with First Amendment rights, because we believe the same thing you do, which code is speech and code should be protected.
Amazing. And Wyoming is amazing. Yeah, there's something magical happening there. So the time is drawing upon us. I want to be super conscious of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we have maybe maybe 10 more minutes or so. Is there anything you wanted to ask us, or is there any shout outs you want to give? Any last minute thoughts?
Yeah, I think, just as a last minute shout out, obviously another extreme bias is, Senator Cynthia Lummis. She's doing the good fight in the US Senate. So if you guys could pass on, for any of your listeners, pass on a thanks to Senator Cynthia Lummis. She's got her bill coming out here soon. Make sure you're following her on Twitter, Facebook, wherever else you go. She doesn't have a TikTok because she's firmly in belief that's owned by the Chinese. She's probably right. I don't know. But make sure to give her a follow if you can donate in the United States to candidates. Maybe throw her $10 or something like that. She does accept crypto as political donations also. So I got a ride for the brand in that case, and she does a great job, and she's been working her tail off to hopefully have a pretty sweet Christmas present to the crypto community right before Christmas.
What about you, Tyler? Where can people find you online?
Oh, I'm all over the place. I'm on Twitter at Tyler_Lindholm, or on Facebook, just search my name, Tyler Lindholm, and look for that tall dude with a cowboy hat on. I promise I'm not just a cowboy, though. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm a pretty geeky cowboy. I'm actually going, the reason I got a boogie early is I'm giving a class, a blockchain 101 to a little cow town in Northeast Wyoming. It's called Sundance. It's a town of 1,100 people, and it's the biggest town in the entire county. So we're learning blockchain tonight, guys.
Nice. That's so awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so I'm going to do my very best to get a much more of the Ava Labs crew at next year's Hackathon. So Connor will be there. I'm tentatively agreeing for it. You guys will meet in person within a year for sure at the next Hackathon.
Whiskey's on me, boys. Whiskey's on me.
Nice. Any last
Next
minute
time you're in
thoughts
DC, I don't know. We could hook up. I'm in Baltimore.
Oh yeah.
Ava
No,
Labs, Mid Atlantic.
okay. I'm like there like almost every week, except for the next 2 weeks. I'm taking vacation, but I'll be
Yeah.
back there first part of December until basically anytime we're in session. Know that I'll be
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
So
in
you're
DC.
there.
So just hit me up on Twitter or whatever. Happy to go out and get a pint at the Dubliner or something like that.
Awesome.
man.
Okay. Any last minute thoughts for you, Connor?
Yeah, just you as always you can follow me on Twitter. So I am at DAS_Connor, DAS_CONNOR.
Yeah, and as always, we're going to put the links below, so don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put tons of links to follow up with Tyler. So yeah, again, thank you guys. If you made it this far, you're an absolute champion. We appreciate our community. This is an absolutely amazing time and place to be alive, and there's just so much potential to do amazing things. So I encourage you, if you're feeling inspired, to go out and build something amazing and change the world. And so I think we're going to wrap it up. So as always, from Snowflake to Avalanche and through consensus to the stars. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers.